TV.
All right, we are going to be talking about the SMEs and whether or not they did pass the COVID-19 test. Well, this year has been undoubtedly the worst to all businesses with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, small businesses have seen closure and others are in a balance. So what lessons do we draw from the COVID-19 pandemic moving on? Does this mean businesses have failed the COVID-19 test? We have John Walugembe, the ED Federation of SMEs, to speak to us about this issue and so forth. A very good morning, Mr. John Walugembe. And welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be at NTV.
Of course. 2020 has been a bad storm for small and medium enterprises, but in your view, how bad has it been?
It's been very bad. We've never had a situation where the economy is completely closed down, not just in this country, but globally. Not even in the Second World War, not even during the war. The economy kept on moving, so it was very bad. It's a major shock to the economy, and we shouldn't minimize it at all. And when we say that the SME sector has been negatively affected, it's a very serious matter. You see that in the US they are passing the fourth stimulus package, I think,
Yes.
you know, targeting small businesses, targeting families. So if the US, the largest economy in the world, is at its fourth stimulus package, it shows you the kind of damage that this pandemic has had and will have, not just on the businesses, but on the broader economy.
Of course, among the measures the government put in place to ensure recovery, do you think they were sufficient enough to help businesses stay afloat during the COVID-19 pandemic?
So I think we need to sympathize with government. Their fiscal space, or the room within which they can put in place a very robust relief package, is very limited. Why? Because it entails the spending of money. And if you don't have a huge tax base like we do have in this country, and you're depending a lot on grants and loans and things like that, it means that your hands are tied in a way. But in the circumstances, the government tried. They lowered the CBR rate in order to ensure that the lending to the private sector is spurred. They had a bit of deferral for taxes. The same with NSSF, you could restructure your payments and so on. They instructed commercial banks to restructure loans as well. Every borrower had an opportunity to restructure twice. And then they recapitalized UDB, not necessarily, because many people get it wrong. They think that the money that was allocated to UDB, the 1.045 trillion, is specifically for the SME and is some kind of relief package. You know, they are recapitalizing, and they are focusing on the real economy, because I had the conversation, focusing on the real economy, manufacturing, agro-processing, and so on. But there's no specific ring-fenced fund specifically for SMEs, apart from money that government now has put in the microfinance support center, which is being sent through SACCOs, microfinance institutions, and then, of course, the MUGA scheme. So I think all these things combined, in our view, should help to resuscitate the economy. But I would say that they are insufficient. More needs to be done.
But I was talking to the executive director of the Uganda Retirement Benefits and Regulatory Authority, Mr. Martin Subuga, and he was telling me there is money in UDB to finance small and medium enterprises that were battered by COVID-19.
No, that is.
I've even had the president mention it.
No, that is
times during the campaigns.
That is wrong. I've had a discussion with the MD of Uganda Development Bank, and the Ministry of Finance has allocated money to UDB for recovery, for the economy as a whole, focusing on the real economy. It means if you're an SME, look, we need to look at the structure of our economy. Most of our SMEs are in low-level services, trading, border, and these kinds of things. These are businesses that wouldn't access money from UDB. Instead, they would access money probably from the microfinance support center. But the issue is that it goes indirectly through SACCOs, through MFIs, through the MUGA scheme. So if you're not part of those groups, you're unlikely to access this money. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that there are different measures, and the money in UDB is not necessarily for SMEs. SMEs could benefit if you fall within those sectors, if you're in manufacturing, if you're in agro-processing, but we think that more needs to be done. You know, we complained about a number of issues, and we've started the conversation now with UDB with a view to coming up with a more robust intervention. Because people keep referring to this fund as if everything has been solved. There's money in UDB. Why are you still crying?
Indeed,
There's money
indeed.
No.
That's the messaging that I've been hearing.
there are still issues, and we are having a discussion, and we are happy that government is open to this discussion. We are engaging with the Ministry of Finance, we are engaging with UDB, they are very open. We want to come up with something that works. And we don't want to say what is there is not working, but more needs to be done.
More needs to be done. And I'm glad, John Walgembe, you made it to NTV Uganda's studios, because the messaging we've been getting from government is that there is money in UDB. If you're small and medium enterprises, you can just make your way to UDB and you'll be getting money.
That is wrong.
And to them, when you talk to them about why people are not accessing this money, they'll be like, the problem is information. There's a lack of information among members of the public who do not know there is money in UDB. But I'm glad you did show up to actually debunk those statements. Yes. But then there is also something that you mentioned, that you need robust interventions to help SMEs. What kind of robust interventions? Break them down.
No, when you have a crisis of this shock, it is a shock to the economy, and you tend to have two major problems. You tend to have a sharp shock towards aggregate demand. Aggregate demand means people are not buying. If you moved around this Christmas and you asked, how much have you sold at people? People are not buying. People are broke.
I thought they would buy at the last moment.
No,
but
they don't have money.
Yes.
Business, people don't have money, you see. So government needs to intervene to boost aggregate demand. One of the things it can do is to offer individual tax relief, is to offer tax relief to companies, because as you offer that tax relief, people have more money to spend. So that's what government deferred tax for a couple of months and things like that. But we believe that we need to come up with more robust tax relief measures, including reducing the VAT rate, including increasing the pay-as-you-earn threshold, so that people at the lower stratum of our economy can also have some excess money to spend. As they spend, that helps to boost businesses. It's not wastage. Some people feel, oh, it's wastage. No, it's not wastage. So those are some of them. Secondly, we need to set up a specific economic injury fund for SMEs. Not separate from EMIOGA, separate from all these things. Let it be there so that an SME that has been compliant, that has been doing well, but their hands are tied now because of the current situation, can be able to access money at zero interest. Indeed. At the very least, government can set up an SME guarantee scheme like the Kenyans have done. So these are the discussions, these are the proposals we are already thinking about that we are going to present to government. And I want to say government is willing to listen to ideas and take them on board.
And now more than ever, I do believe as government expedites these stimulus package processes, they need to involve also the private sector and other people. Just invoke some kind of public-private partnerships so that you can come up with requisite resolutions or recommendations that can help people across all boards and not just the government. Now, in the United States, when it came to talk of a vaccine, Pfizer, BioNTech vaccine, we saw the markets resuscitated. There was business optimism. Now, so far, 1 million people have been vaccinated within the United States, and then business is picking up because of such issues. But then in Uganda here, what does the news of a COVID-19 vaccine mean to the people in the small and medium enterprises?
So it's positive. It means that people in particular sectors, tourists, can start to move again. They'll have the confidence. Once they're vaccinated, they can continue moving to Africa. At the moment, they can't. So even when you open up the airport, even when you bring a new Airbus, no one is showing up. But once the vaccine is there, it will help our friends to keep coming. Now, with regard to us, these vaccines are developed by these companies, and they tend to build a lot of fences around them. So I think for countries like ours, it may take time. I had the Ministry of Information saying that we expect it in by June, something like this.
Around May,
June.
Yes.
So, but even when it comes, we're not going to get sufficient doses. So we must tell people,
frontline workers, in fact.
Yeah, so we must tell people, look, the best way is to prevent. Keep your immunity up. Put on your mask. This vaccine thing will take long to reach everyone in this country. First of all, these vaccines are expensive. And as I said, our countries have issues with financing. They don't have money. So even if the vaccines are freely available and government has to pay for each Ugandan, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So that's why I want to tell Ugandans, yes, the vaccine is good. You've seen it on CNN, but for you it may take 3 or 4 years to become a reality.
Indeed, because of accessibility issues. But then even the investors...
And intellectual property issues.
Indeed. Even the investors themselves, John Walgembe, do you think they might be confident enough to come to Africa knowing from the countries they left, vaccination is taking place, but then I'm going to a hotspot where they do not even know if there's a vaccine in the offing. People haven't even seen even the first shot of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine. Do you think these people, knowing very well that Africa is now a hotspot, might still come and invest or actually engage in tourism in that fact?
No, so this pandemic is definitely going to have a negative impact on the ability of foreign direct investors to come into
ideally the questions
emerging economies like this one.
Ideally the questions pertains to whether or not there is a vaccine. It might not spell optimism for Uganda.
No, having a vaccine is good in all instances, at least to the extent that foreign investors are confident to come. If for us we are dying, at least they'll be confident that they have been vaccinated and they'll survive.
You think they will come?
They'll definitely come if they are vaccinated. But what is also important is that as a country, we need to manage this. Because you see, just having a vaccine doesn't mean that the pandemic will go away. You know, there's a vaccine for flu. People still get flu and die in the US, in the UK, and so on. So I think what Ugandans need to do is to prevent, in my view. And we shouldn't say, oh, I shouldn't wear my mask, I shouldn't care because there's a vaccine. No, they should take the necessary preventive measures, observe the SOPs. And once this pandemic is controlled, I think the economy will get back on its feet. And we are starting to see signs of that in particular sectors. There are sectors that haven't recovered and will take long to recover. If you look at the tourism sector, for it will take long. If you look at the education sector, well, it will shorter time than tourism, but it will recover. If you look at entertainment, it will take long. That whole thing, it will stop making sense. It's just like churches. If you say, oh, we can only have 70 people, then you may find that the offerer of the 70 people will just pay for electricity, for water, and so on, and then it doesn't really make sense at the end of the day. So I think, in my view, people in industries that have been disrupted need to see what other opportunities exist and to see how they diversify. You shouldn't just sit and say, oh, in tourism, I have my lodge, let me wait for tourists. They may take forever. So do something. What opportunities exist? Take advantage of those. Yeah, and if you need advice, the institutions that are willing to offer that advice for free, take that advice, go out there and start something new, and then you wait for things that you cannot control. But if you just wait and hope that everything will get in place because there's a vaccine or there's a stimulus package or whatever, then your business will collapse in the meantime. Yeah.
So, John Walugeme, what are some of the challenges that might offer impediments to the growth of SMEs moving forward?
So the issue is market access. You know, market access has to do with movement. So if people are not moving, then don't have access to markets. Then the other issue is financing. That's what I'm mentioning, that government has been in place some measures. It's still insufficient. We are trying to jointly discuss with government, Ministry of Finance and UDB, how do we resolve this problem?
The market issue.
And I'm very grateful because government has been very open. They've engaged us, they've asked us for papers, they've asked us for input into the budget. So what I can assure Uganda is that government is concerned, definitely concerned.
In fact,
about this issue.
wherever the president goes, the voter is saying, Mr. President, what happened to the market? We do not have any market as people who are doing small businesses in this country.
Correct. And sometimes we are a victim of our own success. You see, Uganda's, over the last 5 years, in terms of productivity and production, if you look at the agricultural sector alone, improvements, if you look at coffee, if you look at maize and so on. So, if you produce so much... We are
producing more sugar than we can use.
Exactly. So, it means you now need to go to the next level in the value chain, which is value addition, which is exportation, which is standardization, and so on. And that's why we need now even operational work creation, government's intervention. Thank you for focusing on the farmer. We are trying to see, we are seeing some results already. Now let's move to ensuring that people work through cooperatives, add value, package, market, and so on. The COVID-19 pandemic will set us back for sure, but I'm definitely confident that we are going to see movement.
Indeed, and what the government is doing, I had the president saying he's talking to President Uhuru Kenyatta to see if the Kenyans can open up market. Uhuru already considered and he said, yes, they are going to be buying more sugar from Uganda, and also the Tanzanian counterpart Magufuli also committed to buy more of our sugar. But then the president also talked about the East African Federation being one of the reasons why we do not have an open market, and he said it's something we need to work on. But then I was like, do we have to wait for the East African Federation to come in the offing for an open market?
No, the president is a good man. He's a Pan-Africanist. Yes. He believes that when you do good, other people will do good.
Indeed.
But sometimes in issues of trade, if Kenya blocks our eggs from going into Kenya, or our milk or our sugar, you also block there something. This is how trade works. And in fact, if you look at that World Trade Organization, it gives you leeway through retaliatory tariffs and things like that. So Uganda should learn to retaliate, not negotiate all the time. Someone blocks this, oh, we shall talk to X. This one happens, oh, we shall talk. So I want to urge the president, please let us bite a bit in order to save our businesses, particularly manufacturers, because the Kenyans have access to our markets. We should have access to their markets, so long as we meet their standards.
Don't you think that can culminate into a trade war and lead to gridlock?
No, it leads to negotiation. You cannot negotiate from a point of weakness. Someone blocks your eggs, blocks your sugar, and you're all the time begging. You
so we need to employ the Donald Trump strategy.
Block something. Of course, it's permissible within international trade law.
Yes.
So block, retaliate, and then you sit on the round table and say, okay, I'll unblock you on this, you also unblock me on the other. So that would be my advice to the President and the Ministry of Trade on this issue, because otherwise our businesses are going to be put in a very uncomfortable situation.
I think the government has chosen to take another direction, because on the railway they've decided they will actually go ahead and expedite that process on their own. Build the railway to the north, our neighbors to the north, the east, the south, and the west in that regard. Correct. Because the Kenyans decided to go the other way. Instead of connecting to Uganda, they connected to Kisumu.
Yeah, that's well, the number of issues, including financing, that was involved in the issue of the standard gauge area. But I'm happy that government is saying, okay, let's do it on our own. Let's do something on our own, so that we already start taking advantage of the railway, so that we save the money that we are saving, rather that we are wasting on road transport.
Indeed. But John Walugembe, what is your outlook for the year 2021 for the SMEs, and do you see the same small and medium enterprises helping the economy actually propel to the more than 3% development?
We have to be optimistic and confident. Things are going to get better.
I see.
This pandemic is not going to leave us anytime soon, but we are going to see certain businesses start to pick up. There are businesses that will collapse, and that's expected. But what I can tell businesses out there is things are going to be up. So long as the economy is open, people are moving, there will be opportunities, and you need to look out for those. Don't get stuck. Don't be a whiner. The situation is going to be tough, but do something. And I'm very confident that things are going to get better. In
what exactly can they do?
I think they need to learn. They need to digitalize.
That technology has taken
they need to
stage.
digitalize. They need to digitalize. You cannot operate the way you operated before. Hawking. No, set up a Facebook page. Use WhatsApp groups to market. Don't hawk. People because of COVID-19, no one's going to listen to you now. So you digitalize. Then you learn new things. It's very important.
If your customer is at home, find a way of targeting them on their phone.
Exactly. Learn new things. You have to keep learning in your business. You can't say, oh, for me, I was the first person to set up a mechanic shop in Eastern Central. That's history. No one is interested. You have millennials, you have Generation X and Generation Z and so on. Target those people with what they want, not what you want.
So if you're a trader in Chikubo, use companies like the Jumia app so that you can market your produce on the internet. Ron Kawamata, reach out to these people.
Exactly. Who wants to go to Chikubo now? Who wants to go to Chikubo? Yes, you are a successful business 2 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever. But that's history now. Things have changed. So if customers have gone online, follow them. Yes.
And advertising?
Yeah.
Online advertising?
Online advertising, and it's even cheaper. You know, if I take a full ad in the newspaper, I pay what, 8 million to 10 million. If you run, that one can get you
but
ads
you can
for 6 months.
simply use your Facebook page, which is free of charge. Just pay OTT.
Use your Facebook page, and you can even place some ads on Facebook or wherever, and you pay a fraction of the cost. So I think people need to retune themselves and reset themselves. We shouldn't be stuck in the yesterday. We should look at the possibilities in our future.
But as we look at the future, which is technology, can you help us call on the government to actually call for the removal of OTT and other tools that are making it hard for people to advertise online?
So this is very easy for me, because URA itself has recommended that they remove it. It does not make sense to collect this tax and so on. So I would want to urge government, if we want our country to be competitive in the new world, we must allow our young people to be online. Inevitably, there will be issues. Young people will go off course and so on, but just need to guide them so that they remain on course. But OTT is a regressive tax that is not going to help us.
All right. Besides OTT, any challenge with new policies in light of survival of the SMEs?
So again, let's focus on retooling our SMEs.
Are there any other, do you see any challenges with the new policies like OTT that might negate the survival of SMEs?
No, I think the other issue we need to look at, as I said, is the issue of bringing down the data costs.
I see.
And also improving connectivity across the country.
Indeed.
And as I said, let's look at our tax laws. with a view to ensuring that our businesses get tax relief.
John Walugembe is the Executive Director for the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises. Many thanks, sir, for having made the time to speak to us.
Thank you very much for having me here, and a Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Looking forward to another conversation, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're still watching Morning at NTV, the #1 breakfast show in the country. Let's take a breather. We'll be right back with more conversations.